Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful concept from software development called code smells. It's a fascinating idea that helps us figure out when something just feels wrong and when it's probably time to make a change.
And it all kind of starts with this amazing piece of advice. Now, Grandma Beck was talking about raising kids, but her philosophy, it just perfectly sets the stage for what we're about to get into.
If you build software, this is the real dilemma, right? Knowing the syntax, the mechanics of rewriting code, that's one thing. But having the wisdom to know when to do it, that's a whole different ballgame. See, the people who came up with this concept, they wanted to move past that vague gut feeling. They were looking for something more solid, something more reliable than just aesthetics, to help them decide when to restructure or refactor their software.
Okay, so let's dive into the big idea. The authors, Kent Beck and Martin Fowler, they gave these warning signs a name that's just so intuitive. They called them code smells. So let's be clear. A smell isn't a bug. It's not going to crash your program. It's more like a hint, a surface-level clue that suggests there might be a deeper design problem, something that's going to make your code harder to change down the road.
And the story behind the name pretty much tells you everything. It's meant to be visceral, right? It's not some abstract, high-level theory. It's that feeling you get when something is just a little bit off. And this is what's so cool about it. This isn't about some tool that spits out a score. It's about you, the developer, developing your own informed human intuition. It's about training yourself to spot these patterns and really building up your own internal sense of what high-quality code looks and feels like. All right, so let's walk through a few concrete examples from what the authors playfully call the stink parade. These are some of the most common smells you're likely to run into. First up, the number one offender, duplicated code. This is exactly what it sounds like. You see the same lines of code, the same logic popping up in more than one place in your system, and it is a huge red flag. This here shows you exactly why it's a problem. So imagine you need to change the tax rate from 8% to 9%. Well, now you've got to remember to change it in method A, and you have to remember to change it in method B. If you forget one, boom, you've just introduced a bug.
Oh yeah, next up is a classic we've all seen and probably all written, the long method. You know the one. It's a function that started small, but it just grew and grew over time until it's this massive scrolling monster that's almost impossible to figure out.
And the authors have a fantastic little rule of thumb for this. The moment you feel like you need to write a comment to explain what a section of code is doing, just stop. That's your signal. That section of code is begging to be pulled out into its own new method with a name that explains exactly what it does. I think this one has the best name of all, feature envy. This is when a method is sitting in one class, but it's constantly calling methods and grabbing data from another class. It's envious of the other class's stuff. It's a pretty strong sign that, you know what? That method is probably living in the wrong house.
Okay, so these next two smells, they're really two sides of the same coin, and they point to a really deep principle about how we want our software to behave when we need to change it.
So on one hand, you've got divergent change. That's where one single class is trying to do way too many things. And on the other hand, you've got shotgun surgery. That's where one single change forces you to make tiny little edits in a bunch of different classes. Both of these make changing your code a real pain. So the goal, the ideal that you're shooting for, is this. When you need to make a common kind of change, say adding a new type of financial instrument, you should only have to go to one single, obvious place in the code to do it. That's it. All right, let's get to the last one. And honestly, this one might be the most controversial, the most surprising smell for a lot of people. It takes something we're all taught is a good thing, writing comments, and it flips it on its head. Get this. The authors make this really bold claim. They say that a lot of the time, comments are basically used as a deodorant. We're not using them to add clarity. We're using them to cover up the smell of code that's already confusing or badly written. Now, let's be super clear. They are not saying comments are evil or that you should never write them. What they're saying is that the need to write a comment is often the real smell. It's a signal that your code isn't communicating its intent clearly enough on its own. So this gives you a whole new way to think, a new habit to build. The next time you're about to write a comment, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, is there a way I can refactor this code? Maybe rename a variable or extract a function to make it so clear that I don't even need the comment anymore? So when you boil it all down, what are code smells? They aren't strict rules you have to follow. They're a vocabulary. They give us a shared language to talk about code quality and to build that all-important intuition. They guide us in making better decisions about when it's time to improve our work. And you know, this idea is way too big and way too useful to just keep it in the world of code. Think about it. That process at work that everyone gets wrong, the meeting that could have been an email, these are all smells. They're signals. So the question to leave you with is, what smells in your world are trying to tell you that it's time for a change?